Donald Trump's tariffs have crashed markets all over the world the last 3 weeks. But the real question on everybody's mind is, will Trump's tariff announcement in just 4 hours time end the Bitcoin bull run early? Well, the general consensus thinks that tariffs will crash Bitcoin, but macro analyst Arthur Hayes, I've been loving his work, all the Substack posts that he's been posting over the last couple of months or so, doesn't think that tariffs matter at all, because he just came out and predicted a 250K Bitcoin. You heard that right, by the end of 2025. And we're going to get into all of the details as to why he believes that's the case. And you better stay tuned until the end of the video, because we're going to cover it all. Anyways, joining me today here to my right-hand side, of course, is my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields. We are in Dallas, Texas for the BitBlockBoom conference, which we're going to be live streaming later on the week for you guys on Saturday. It's going to be a great conference, and I hope to see a lot of you guys there. Anyways, everybody, let's jump straight into today's news. So first of all, who is Arthur Hayes? Arthur Hayes is the CEO and founder of BitMEX. BitMEX got a lot of got very famous because I believe it's like one of the first exchanges that allowed you to do like 100x leverage. And he was actually famously charged and convicted by the previous administration. So this is a very this is a founder and CEO in the Bitcoin and crypto space that has a great reputation, successful entrepreneur. Obviously, as Bitcoin maxis, you know, we're Bitcoin only, but he went down the crypto casino route, but you know, to each their own, I guess. But anyhow, he got pardoned by Trump. Check out this CNBC article. Trump pardons 3 BitMEX crypto exchange co-founders and ex-employee, and of course, one of them was Arthur Hayes. So let's talk about Arthur Hayes' latest article, where he unpacks all of this. He does a deep dive into the tariffs. He does a deep dive into what's happening, the power struggle that's happening between the Treasury and the Federal Reserve, and how that impacts general macro markets, how that impacts Bitcoin. So there's a whole lot to unpack. First, we're going to start off with this post that Arthur Hayes came out with on March 23rd. And he says, I bet BTC hits 110K before it retests 76K. And he goes on to say, tariffs don't matter, cause transitory inflation. Jay Powell told me so. And he goes on to say, because a lot of people couldn't understand his first cryptic post, he said, my grammar was a bit off. What I mean is that the price is more likely to hit 110K than 76K next. If we hit 110K, then it's Yahtzee time. We ain't looking back until 250K Bitcoin. He dropped an article explaining what his rationale, what his reasoning was. And what's really fascinating about this article to me was, again, the power struggle between the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. The fact is that for Trump to really roll out his agenda, he needs the Federal Reserve on his side. But right now, the Federal Reserve is not playing ball, if you put the politics aside, because, again, their mandate is to get inflation under control. And right now, inflation is running hot. But again, Trump needs a QE environment. So Arthur Hayes breaks it down. We're going to go through the entire article, or not the entire article, but the parts that I found the most interesting. So he goes on to say, quote, the game has materially changed after the Fed's most recent March meeting regarding global dollar liquidity. Powell laid out a path towards a resumption of quantitative easing focused on the U.S. Treasury bond market. While everyone is hemming and hawing about whether the effects of tariffs are good or bad, what the crypto markets should be rejoicing that QE will return, and he believes that it will return by the summer. He goes on to say, I spent the past few weeks consuming the missives of my favorite macroeconomic analyst. A large part of every essay I read was devoted to parsing Trump's true intentions. Some say that Trump will go hard and break things until his approval ratings slip into the low 30s range. Others say that Trump believes it's his mission in his last term to remake the world order and put America's financial, political, and military house in order. The TLDR is that he's willing to tolerate significant economic pain and precipitous fall in popularity to do what he believes is right for America. And again, why does all of this matter? All of this matters because, again, because Bitcoin is such a large asset, whether we like this or not, the general macroeconomic environment affects the price of Bitcoin. So anyways, Arthur Hayes continues to say, Trump believes that by bringing these manufacturing jobs back to America, he can give good jobs to the roughly 65% of the population who have no university degrees. Become militarily stronger because weapons and such will be produced in the quantities needed to face off against a peer or a near peer rival and grow the economy above trend at 3% real GDP growth. There are some apparent issues with this plan. Prices will fall if China and others do not have dollars to prop up the Treasury and stock market. Scott Bessent, U.S. Treasury Secretary, needs buyers for the gargantuan amount of debt that must be rolled over and for the persistent federal deficits out into the future. His plan is to lower the deficit to 3% from roughly 7% by 2028. The second issue is that the capital gains taxes from a rising stock market are the marginal revenue driver for the government. When rich folks aren't making money slinging stocks, the deficit grows. Trump didn't campaign on a platform to cease military spending or cut entitlement benefits like healthcare and Social Security. He campaigned on a platform of growth and elimination of fraudulent spending. Therefore, he needs capital gains tax revenue, even though it's rich people who own all the stocks. And on average, they didn't vote for him in 2024. Assuming that Trump successfully reduces the deficit from 7% to 3% by 2028, the government is still a net borrower year after year. Growth is 5%. If the government is issuing debt at 3% of the GDP rate, but is economically growing at nominally at 5%, then mathematically the debt to GDP ratio will decline over time. There's one missing piece at what interest rate will the government be able to finance itself. Theoretically, if the U.S. government grows at 5% nominally, Treasury investors should demand at least 5%. But that would materially increase interest rates because currently the Treasury pays a weighted average interest rate of 3.282% on its $36 trillion in debt and growing debt pile. The maths don't add up. Bessent can find a buyer of treasuries at uneconomically high prices or low yields. The Chinese and other exporters can't and won't buy treasuries because Trump is busy remaking the global financial and trade system. Private investors won't because the yield is too low. Only U.S. commercial banks and the Fed, that's the key point here, the Fed have the firepower to buy the debt at a level the government can afford. The Fed can print money and buy bonds, which is called quantitative easing, aka money printer, how we call it here. Money printer go burr, how we call it here at Simply Bitcoin. Banks can print money and buy bonds, which is called fractional reserve banking. However, it's not that easy. The Fed is supposedly busy with its quest to bring the manipulated and fugazi metric of inflation below their made-up 2% target. It is very simple to change this state of play and turn the Fed and bank into inelastic buyers of Treasury. The Fed can decide at a minimum to end QT and a maximum to restart QE. The question then becomes, why would Jerome Powell's Fed help Trump accomplish his policy goals? The Fed blatantly helped Harris in her bid to win the election by cutting rates by 0.5% in September of 2024. And post-Trump's victory proved to be, what does that say, Opti? Obstinate? There we go.
Yeah,
obstinate to Trump's demand that they increase the quantity of money such that long-term Treasury yield decline. To understand why Powell will do what is required of him by the government, let's take a detour back to 1979. Now, I don't know if I could say this on YouTube, but it's absolutely hilarious. Right now, Powell is sitting in the UC chair watching Bassett ravage the Fed's credibility and fighting inflation. The BBC reigns supreme because fiscal dominance is in play. In short, the Fed will eschew independence and do what is necessary to finance the government at affordable rates once the total amount of debt gets too large. So essentially what Arthur is saying is that regardless of how Powell feels about the Trump administration, regardless of the fact that Powell helped Kamala get elected, it doesn't matter. Essentially, Bassett and Trump are putting Powell in a situation where he's going to have no choice but to essentially reverse course because the Fed can't have the U.S. economy falter on its watch. Now, we've been speculating about this for the last couple of weeks. You know, me and Opti, and again, this is not up me and Opti's wheelhouse, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what is going on here. We've been speculating about this. We're saying, listen, it looks like Trump's playing 4D chess. He's talking about the tariffs to cause uncertainty in the markets to essentially try to force the hand of the Fed to make the money printer go burr again. What Arthur is making the case for is that, listen, even if the Fed wants to remain political, it's not going to have a choice but to essentially do exactly what the Treasury wants it to do. And he lays out a bunch of historical examples of that happening in the past. Anyways, so why are we talking about all this? What does this have to do with Bitcoin? It has everything to do with Bitcoin because Bitcoin has only existed in a QE environment. Bitcoin has never existed in a QT environment. So if Arthur is right that they're going to reverse QT completely and start QE again in the summer, look at what has happened to Bitcoin in QE environments in the past. Number goes up. Arthur continues to say, Powell proved last week that fiscal dominance is alive and well. Therefore, I am confident QT, at least regarding treasuries, will stop in the short to medium term. Going further, Powell stated that while the Fed may maintain mortgage-backed security runoff, it will net buy treasuries. Mathematically, that keeps the Fed balance sheet constant. However, this is Treasury QE. Bitcoin will scream higher once this is formally announced. Furthermore, because the banks and the Treasury demand it, the Fed will grant the SLR exemption for the banks, which is another form of Treasury QE. Ultimately, the reason is that the maths I posted above will not work otherwise. And Powell cannot stand by and allow the U.S. government to falter, even if he detests Trump, which is exactly why Arthur is calling Powell an uck to Bassett and Trump. Anyways. So the article continues to say, and this is more related to Bitcoin. Again, this is a Bitcoin show. All of this relates to Bitcoin. Bitcoin didn't exist back in 2008, but now it does. Bitcoin's value equals technology plus fiat liquidity. I think this is very, very important. I think the technology component had a lot more significance back in Bitcoin's early days. But now that the halvings are becoming less and less impactful, I think it has more to do with just global fiat liquidity. I think Arthur has made the case for that as well. I don't know if he made the case for that in this article, but I've seen him make the case for that in multiple podcasts that he's been on. The technology works, and there aren't any major changes, good or bad, occurring in the near future. Therefore, Bitcoin trades. So this is the most important part. Bitcoin trades solely based on the market expectation for the future supply of fiat. If my analysis of the Fed's major pivot from QT to QE for treasuries is correct, then Bitcoin hit a local low of 76,500 last month, and now we begin the ascent to 250,000 by year end. Of course, this is not an exact science, but using the gold example, if I had to place a bet on whether I thought Bitcoin would hit 76,500 or 110,000 first, I would bet on the latter. Even if the US stocks continue falling in reaction to tariffs, a collapse in earnings expectations, and or foreign demand waning, I am confident that the odds favor Bitcoin continuing to climb higher. Cognizant of the good and bad, Maelstrom is deploying capital cautiously. We use no leverage. We buy in small clips relative to the size of our total portfolio. When the market goes up, I want to wish my size was bigger, but I am thankful it's not when the market trades lower. We have been buying Bitcoin and altcoins at all levels between 90K and 76K. The pace of capital deployment will quicken or slacken depending on the accuracy of my predictions. I still believe Bitcoin could hit 250K by year end because now that Beckett has put Powell in his place, the Fed will flood the market with dollars. This allows Xi Jinping to instruct the Central Bank of China to stop tightening monetary conditions onshore to defend the dollar-yuan exchange rate, which increases the net quantity of yuan. And finally, Germany decided to build an army, again paid for with printed euros, and every other European nation must respond by building their own army with printed euros because they're afraid of a 1939 remix to Ignition. Yahtzee. What an incredible article by Arthur Hayes. A lot to unpack there. I simplified it a little bit in a paragraph, but essentially the Fed is no longer acting. Can you make this full screen? Thanks, Opti. The Fed, Opti's reading my mind. The Fed is no longer acting independently. After the March FOMC meeting, it's clear that Powell and the Fed are now bending the knee to political pressure and will likely restart QE, aka money printing, to buy U.S. government debt. Arthur argues that the Powell pivot means that fiscal dominance is back. The government's need to borrow and spend is overriding the Fed's mission to fight inflation. Powell, once determined to be tough like former Fed Chair Powell Volcker, is now being compared to a much weaker Arthur Burns, who came to political pressure in the 1970s. The pivot is bullish for Bitcoin, gold, and other assets that benefit from loose monetary policy. That was one of the best articles I've read that has broken down essentially the conditions that have been essentially the reason as to why we've been in the situation that we've been in for the last couple of months. And we couldn't figure it out as Bitcoiners. Like we couldn't, in fact, we couldn't figure it out so hard that it's made me and Opti dive into macro articles, okay? Because we couldn't figure it out. I was like, listen, we are in the cycle. Numbers should be going up. And we just started doing a whole lot of research. I mean, to give us credit, we started connecting the dots before a lot of this. We're like, Trump's playing 4D chess. I don't think the Fed is being friendly towards the Trump administration. They definitely tried to help Kamala win this previous election. But once you connect the dots, you figure out what's happening. And according to this article, and I agree, Arthur Hayes isn't the only one to believe this as well, the Fed's not going to have a choice but to pivot in the summer, in May. And then once they pivot, once QE is back, history has shown number goes effing up, and I'm really excited for that. Anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts on this, man? Incredible article by Arthur Hayes, and I love the satire. Unfortunately, guys, I couldn't read all the satire to you guys.
It's a family-friendly show.
It's a
Nico.
family-friendly show, but we'll post a link to the article. I highly recommend reading it. It's very in depth. I think it's been the most accurate assessment of what's been going on in the general kind of macroeconomic landscape. Now, is his prediction of 250K Bitcoin going to come true? Is that a certainty? No one knows where the price of Bitcoin is going to be tomorrow or 12 months from now. But what we do know is that in a QE environment, number goes up. That's generally what tends to happen. Anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts about this, bro? That was a lot. That was a lot of information to unpack. I don't think we've ever started a Simply Bitcoin live show with that much information condensed.
No, not at all. Not at all. And also, everyone in the chat is saying you should let Opti read because Nico butchered way too much in there. Anyways, like what Nico was saying, the last couple of weeks, Nico and I have both kind of independently had to go to different macro sources to be like, okay, what is going on? You guys know the last couple of days we've been talking on the show is like, is this Bitcoin cycle differently? What is different from the past? And as Arthur Hayes laid out, there is a few fundamental differences in this cycle. Obviously, as Nico was saying, we basically lived in a QE environment for the lifetime of Bitcoin. The last couple of years, you know, maybe realistically, just since QT ended, we're starting to see that we are pivoting here. But Arthur Hayes isn't the only one that's been saying this. And I've been listening to Tom Luongo recently just to kind of grasp what is actually going on in the macro markets. And me and Rustin have both kind of independently came to the same idea. And Arthur is essentially saying the same thing. What we're seeing right now is an economic war. But furthermore, it's not just a war between...
I would say it's more of like a power struggle. It's a political...
Is that not a war? It's the same difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, but a war would be like... A war would be defined as like, essentially like the U.S. is going to war with another country. I would say this is like an internal power structure.
Well, there's two. It's two.
Internal power struggle.
That's where I was going.
Between the Federal Reserve, that's supposed to not be political, but might have been acting political, and the executive branch, the White House, and the Treasury.
No, yeah, you're 100% right. And that's the point. Like, what we're seeing is like two things playing out in real time. We're seeing that the last couple of years, the Fed and the ECB, you know, America and Europe, they've been doing some things to kind of separate themselves, particularly from the Fed side. And we're seeing that the EU is acting all kinds of strange ways. They're very concerned about what's going on because of the euro dollar system and the creation of offshore dollars. And now we're in this place where the Fed basically got the ECB into control. But internally here in the US, we are seeing that Treasury and the Fed are actively having this internal battle right now. And so we do have these Trump tariffs being announced in roughly 4 hours right now. And it's going to be very interesting to see what the market do in reaction to this, not just the Bitcoin markets, but all markets. And the very huge part of that article that I think Arthur mentioned is what we're seeing happen in gold right now. Gold is still hitting all-time highs. We know historically that Bitcoin lags the gold price. So if gold's hitting all-time highs, it's only a matter of weeks, I would say, that we're going to see Bitcoin hit all-time high. We're seeing a record amount of gold liquidity movement right now. So people are trying to get into gold because of the general theme of you go to the hardest asset, you go to the best money when there's general uncertainty in the markets. And this is what we're dealing with. There's all kinds of uncertainty in the markets right now. And of course, us Bitcoiners are like, we're waiting at the finish line, essentially. And I hate to say like Bitcoin's already won, but we're essentially waiting at the finish line, and we're just like, guys, like everyone's coming to Bitcoin. Obviously, more traditional conservative investors go into gold first. But I think as we're kind of piecing this puzzle together, we're seeing a few indicators, leading indicators that I would argue are going to be super bullish for Bitcoin. Obviously, as we showed, I think it was yesterday, M2 global liquidity is on the rise and gold is hitting all-time highs right now. So look, I'm sure maybe in the short term, like Arthur Hayes is saying, maybe later today, we'll see, you know, at 4 p.m. or whatever it is, 4 p.m. Eastern, I believe, maybe we see Bitcoin dump. But right now we're at like, I don't know, 87. It's been pumping all morning.
87, man. 80. I mean, Liberation Day, bro.
Let's go on.
Liberation Day. Was he talking about Bitcoin? Was Trump talking about Bitcoin?
Well, his sons are probably. That's the leading indicator.
It seems like someone was a fan of me reading the article, Opti. I appreciate you, bro. Thank you for making me feel better. But anyways, listen, in all seriousness, guys, you guys can check out the full article. We posted it in the live chat, in the Rumble live chat, and we posted it in the video description. It'll go in the podcast description. Check it out. Has so much information in there, and it's super fun read because it's like written in kind of like this satirical fashion. It's absolutely hilarious. But yes, the TLDR, there's a power struggle between the Fed and the Treasury and the White House.
And the EU.
And essentially, the Treasury and the White House are trying to force the hand of the Fed, and the Fed is not going to have a choice but to comply and essentially go along with it. And when the Fed complies, money printer go burr, good for Bitcoin, makes the number go up. And that's why he believes we'll hit 250K Bitcoin by the end of the year. And I'm telling you, I've been reading so many articles, just trying to get to the bottom of this for like the last month or two. I'm like, why is the Bitcoin price not going up? This article to me has been the one that has felt the most on point, has felt the most, the one that it feels like it's had the deepest understanding of the macro environment currently and why Bitcoin is behaving the way it is. So again, does that mean it's completely 100% accurate? Does this mean that all these things are going to come true? No, but I don't know. It's just a hunch. I mean, we've been right on things so far, right? What do we say? You know, simply Bitcoin. Tomorrow's Bitcoin news today. So, anyways, guys.
Wait. And last thing I want to say though, I know a lot of Bitcoiners are saying like, I only care about Bitcoin. I only worry about Bitcoin. And I think that was true for a long time. But now as we are seeing, Bitcoin is maturing, guys. So like you do have to kind of factor in some macroeconomic landscapes of how Bitcoin's going to react in this new paradigm. I know for a while there, a lot of us were getting burnt out with all the macro talk. And we're like, everyone's a macro expert now. Well, newsflash, we all kind of have to become macro experts because we are entering a new paradigm. We are maturing and everyone is going to start rushing to Bitcoin. Sorry to cut you off, Nico.
No. Absolutely. 100%. I think that's an amazing take. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 2,247 of you guys watching live between YouTube and X. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We're already at 127 likes on YouTube. Help us break 200 likes. There's 600 of you guys watching live on YouTube. Help us break 200 likes by the time we get to the 45-minute part of the show. And of course, shout out to the hardcore Rumble audience. Almost 100 of you guys watching live on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button, share the video. Again, really helps pushing this content forward. Guys, we had so much information jam-packed to the beginning of the show, but we still have so much content for you guys. It's going to be an incredible show for you guys today. We have a video of Representative Begich of Alaska saying that the United States is going to be buying 1 million Bitcoin soon. And then during the news segment, we're going to be talking about Nigeria. Now, the reason that we're talking about Nigeria is because Nigeria sued Binance, and essentially Nigeria was blaming Binance for the failure of their currency. And the reason this is important is because Nigeria was one of the first countries to launch a central bank digital currency. It was called the e-Naira, and it was an absolute total failure. But the reason that we're covering this is because it's a foreshadowing. It's showing you what's going to happen in the future, right? So a government launches a CBDC, and I think in Europe, I think this applies to Europe the most, right? Because Europe is going down the CBDC route, the United States is going down the stablecoin route. So how did Nigeria react? So the CBDC essentially was a failure. And instead of saying, like, you know what, like, we should probably address the reasons as to why it was a failure. And the reason that CBDCs will fail compared to more open monetary networks is because governments are always going to want to do two things. They're always going to want to debase the currency, and they're always going to want to control the currency. But instead of taking responsibility and saying, hey, you know what, guys, like we should probably just stop printing money. No, they actually blamed one of the off-ramps. They said, no, we don't want people escaping to Bitcoin. We don't want people escaping to Tether. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I suspect that once they roll out the CBDC in all these countries all around the world, the governments are not going to blame themselves for the failure of adoption of these CBDCs. They're going to blame the alternatives, and they're going to go after the companies that allow you to off-ramp into those alternatives. So the Nigeria example is a great case study of what could happen. And remember, in Nigeria, they jailed one of the Binance executives. It wasn't until the Trump administration came in there and made a deal with the Nigerian government that this executive was freed. So we're going to be talking about that during the news. I think it's a fascinating topic. And then during the culture segment, you guys might be asking, why are we doing a show in person, in the flesh, next to each other? We are in Dallas, Texas for the BitBlockBoom conference that's going to be happening on Saturday. And of course, we're going to be live streaming the entire conference for you guys. So many awesome speakers. We got Larry Lepard, James Lavish, Dante Cook, Marty Bent. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And of course, we're going to be having the news desk as well. So I hope to see you guys at BitBlockBoom on the conferences on Saturday. And again, if you use promo code BBB21, you get $100 off of your tickets. All right, everybody, no more delay. I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, by far the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Enable your independence today with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the US of A. They have recurring buys. They have get paid directly in Bitcoin, meaning you put in your bank information into Bitcoin Well, you adjust what percentage you want to get paid in Bitcoin, and essentially they take a percentage of your paycheck and they send it directly to your Bitcoin wallet address. So all these new features were just released recently. Check them out. They're the best place to buy Bitcoin. The reason that we love them so much is that it's a self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramp. I believe the only one in the United States. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. They don't even give you the ability to leave the money on the exchange. Also, if you're a higher net worth individual looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. This is a white glove service tailored for higher net worth individuals that are tired of dealing with finicky UI. They're tired of dealing with support emails. They want a real human being every time they want to buy or sell Bitcoin. Go check out Bitcoin Well Infinite today. Go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. We're going to do it live for you guys right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready. Flip a coin into the Wishing Well. First person to scan the QR code has won 210 sats. If you use promo code simply BTC to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the Wishing Well. And every toss, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. That's right, 1 million Satoshis. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have tons to talk about. We will be right back. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody, if you scan the QR code on your screen, it'll take you directly to the stampseed.com website. If you use promo code SIMPLY, you get 15% off anything on the store. We're at 183 likes right now. Smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the show. Help us break 200 likes by the time the show gets to the 40-minute mark. Smash that like button. Scan the QR code. Stampseed.com. Use promo code SIMPLY. Store your generational wealth properly. Don't write down your seed phrase. Stamp it into titanium. Again, promo code SIMPLY. 15% off anything on the store. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $87,200. Block height, 890,587. Sats per dollar, 1,147. Market cap, 1.73 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.88%. Percentage issued, 94.5%. Decline from all-time high, negative 20.1%. Realized monetary inflation, 0.89%. The grand scheme of things, you're getting a 20% discount if you're buying Bitcoin right now. And again, my favorite stat right out of all of this, I'm going to continue saying this, is going to go down for zero. It's going to go down to zero one day. Maybe me and Opti will be like 80 years old, but this will be in the 0.00 something percent. The realized monetary inflation rate. Even if central banks get, the inflation rate back down to that magical 2% number that nobody can explain why it's 2%, Bitcoin is still lower than that. And by the way, that number will continue to go down forever. When me and Opti added that stat to Clark Moody's dashboard, it was like 3%, I believe. Right?
I think it was 394.
It was like 394, and it's just continuing to go down. And with the halving, this is absolute scarcity. This is what you're watching in front of your eyes. Anyways, here is Representative Begich. Representative Begich was the co-signer to Cynthia Lummis's Bitcoin Act when she reintroduced it at the Bitcoin Policy Summit that our friends over at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, headed by David Zell, had a couple weeks ago. And Representative Begich, what we found out is that he's been buying Bitcoin since 2014, right? So this is we have a Bitcoiner in Congress, and he was a co-signer to the Bitcoin Act 2 that was introduced by Senator Lummis. Now, when I interviewed Senator Lummis in DC earlier on this year, I asked her a question. I said, "Are you working with the Trump administration?" She says they're working with the Trump administration very, very closely. So again, obviously Representative Begich is working very closely with Senator Cynthia Lummis, or else they wouldn't have co-signed the bill. So again, and if you connect the dots with Bo Hines, right, that part of the Trump cabinet, Bo Hines is basically saying we're finding ways to acquire Bitcoin in net neutral ways, right? So again, ideally, we would want the Bitcoin Act to be passed, because then there would be longevity in the strategic Bitcoin reserve of the U.S. If it isn't passed, if it's done via executive order, it's great as long as Trump's in the White House. But, if the Republicans lose the White House in 2028, which is a possibility, then, essentially the next administration could reverse everything that the Trump administration did in regards to the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So anyways, from a number go up perspective, I think this is very bullish, but from a revolutionary perspective, we want individuals taking self-custody of their Bitcoin. If enough of us do that, we win, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. So I'm going to play you guys this clip of Representative Begich basically saying that the United States has the intention to acquire 1 million Bitcoin in the near future. Let's check it out.
The Bitcoin Act establishes the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, a federal initiative to ensure that the United States holds a meaningful position in the most important decentralized financial network on Earth. With an eye to fiscal responsibility and innovation, the legislation outlines a plan to phase in the acquisition of up to 1 million Bitcoin, or roughly 5% of its total final supply over 5 years. Importantly, this will be done without raising taxes or increasing government debt. The Bitcoin Act is designed to be budget neutral, relying on Federal Reserve remittances, which exceeded $76 billion in 2023, gold certificate revaluations, unlocking additional capital without new spending, and updates to the Exchange Stabilization Fund. These mechanisms allow us to build a strategic reserve without burdening taxpayers, while also potentially offsetting.
All right, Opti. I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think I just have to continue to acknowledge just like where we are in the Bitcoin movie, that we have, governors from any state talking about Bitcoin favorably. We were literally saying 2 years ago, well, it was more Nico saying it, but 2 years, or rather last year, we were afraid of even being Bitcoiners in America. And, love or hate the Trump administration, they have done very good things in regards to Bitcoin. And I think we're going to see more of this. You can tell, not just from Trump himself, but from his kids, interest and their new acquisitions in HUD 8, or rather partnership in HUD 8. I think they're calling it American Bitcoin Miner or something like that, that they're serious about this Bitcoin thing going on right now. And shout out to my boy Nolan, because he's been saying this for a long time on the breakup, that we are potentially, and it seems like it's actually happening, entering into a bimetallism period, or rather renewing a bimetallism period in the US, though instead of it being silver and gold, it's probably going to be gold and Bitcoin, or rather, fiat and Bitcoin, because you're gonna spend your fiat, you're gonna save your Bitcoin. So if we are entering into this bimetallism period and it's fiat and Bitcoin, obviously, as we can tell right now, the HODL meme is going to be very strong, because hey, you can't save dollars, you need something to save in, especially if we're doing this situation now where the rich, wealthy people in the stock market are getting kind of wrecked, and average everyday people, whether you're rich or not, need something to store your value in. And this seems like where we are right now. But talking about some of these budget neutral ways for them to acquire Bitcoin, obviously, I would definitely agree with this idea that we shouldn't be raising our tax dollars to buy Bitcoin. I mean, I don't need to add more to it, but I think that the real interesting aspect, first we heard it from Bo Hines, now we're hearing it from Governor Begich, this idea of reevaluating the gold that we hold. If we do that, and then further, they've been talking about selling that gold to buy Bitcoin. It's it's hard to tell what timeline we're in right now and what is actually going on, and kind of knowing Trump and the art of the deal, it's kind of interesting to see what they put out there and what will actually materialize. Obviously, we're at what are we? 70 days ish since Trump became the president, got inaugurated. So I know, sorry, BJ, blame Canada. Yes, always. We're here with Murph and we've been trolling him. We're blaming Canada for everything. So it's just very interesting to see what's going to materialize. Obviously, a lot of this is rhetoric. I obviously want to see an act and not just an executive order. Personally, I'm not too fond of the U.S. government acquiring too much Bitcoin, but I think the as Nika like to say, the shot across the bow here is that now the bow. Sorry, Nika, we both can't speak English. The main signal here is, hey, if the U.S. fully embraces Bitcoin, then what does that mean for every other country in the world? That they can't ignore it, that everyone else is going to literally rush to the exit door that is Bitcoin. And we all know what's going on with treasuries. Trump administration is doing whatever they can to get people to buy US debt, and people don't want it right now. So we're seeing all kinds of crazy stuff. Obviously, I want to see some of this materialize. I really want to see a little further, a little further action in the Bitcoin front. But I think this is all very, very undervalued in terms of Bitcoin price. I think very few people really understand what's going on. Even us Bitcoiners hardly understand what's going on. We have to relearn everything that we've known, but with our Bitcoin fundamentals, and be like, wait, where are we actually going right now? So crazy times we're living in. I think we're going to see some really good things in terms of Bitcoin in the next 4 years. I think we're going to see crazy stuff by this year. So I'm super excited to see how this Bitcoin narrative develops, and further what the action is going to be around Bitcoin in the United States.
100%. I mean, again, from a number go up perspective, it's extremely bullish. I mean, it's the legitimization. The world's most powerful country economically, militarily, is essentially putting a rubber stamp of approval on Bitcoin, and it's just going to force other central banks around the world to acquire Bitcoin as well, right? And it's an inevitability. Especially countries like China, like Russia, that see the United States as rivals. If the United States is acquiring Bitcoin, they're gonna follow in the footsteps of the U.S. Right? I mean, you had a German politician who played you guys a video. I believe she spoke at Bitcoin Amsterdam, and she was basically making the case look, if the U.S. is buying Bitcoin, we're all gonna not have a choice but to buy Bitcoin as well. And again, very bullish from a number go up perspective, but from a revolutionary perspective, from an individual perspective, again, you want more individuals holding Bitcoin in self-custody rather than nation states and governments holding Bitcoin, right? So, but again, the Jeff Booth quote comes to mind, right? Which is, the thing about Bitcoin is that you're going to have to be okay with even your worst enemy holding Bitcoin. That's just a reality, So anyways, guys, we still have a jam-packed show for you guys. We're going to be talking about the Nigeria case study during the news. So we're going to hit that, and we will be right back. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, we broke our 200 like target. Help us break 250 likes by the end of the show. So smash that like button. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Bitcoin security matters, but managing private keys can sometimes be complicated, especially multi-sig. What if you can secure your Bitcoin without worrying about losing a seed phrase or giving up custody? With Casa, you can completely control your Bitcoin with multi-key security, so even if one key is lost or stolen, your funds stay safe. No single point of failure, no stress. That's what I absolutely love about these guys. They make taking Bitcoin into self-custody incredibly easy with their best in industry user experience through their app. I've been personally recommending Casa for years now to my friends and family because they will get all the benefits of multi-key self-custody security without the hassle of having to learn complicated UI. And if you're thinking of one day passing on your Bitcoin to the next generation, their inheritance plan has you covered. Also, if you're a business looking to add Bitcoin to your treasury, do it the secure way with Casa for Business. To get started, go to casa.io today and get 5% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium with promo code SIMPLY. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally have not only an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you. Check out ledin.io today. All right, everybody, we are back. Let's talk about today's news. And the reason this is important, perhaps a lot of you guys are like, listen, I'm not from Nigeria. The vast majority of our audience are from the United States and the United Kingdom and Canada. So it's like, look, I don't, this doesn't impact me. Well, it does. And the reason that it does is because, again, you have to see it as a case study, because the series of events, they wouldn't change if it happened in another country. So again, Nigeria was the first country to launch a central bank digital currency on a massive scale. It's called the e-Naira. And it was a massive, massive failure. And the whole point of central bank digital currencies is for governments to essentially retain their power of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for, their control over money, and their control over essentially their ability to just issue money and cause inflation. And they want to retain that control. So a CBDC is like trying to justify the continuation of government issued money. And Bitcoin wouldn't even exist today if governments didn't abuse that trust we bestowed onto them. Now, you could make an argument that before Bitcoin came around, that was the best way. There was no other way, right? You had to do it that way. But after Bitcoin was invented or discovered, depending on how you view it, every block that's found, every day that Bitcoin continues to exist, Bitcoin proves that money can exist without inflation. And remember, currency debasement is a huge source of revenue for governments. But this is a source of revenue that the citizens did not agree to. We agreed to income tax. We agreed to property tax. I know a lot of people don't like those things, but it's in the social contracts. It's in law. As people, we did not agree to the money tax. And anytime we bring it up and we complain, they gaslight us. They blame everything and anything as the cause of inflation, but themselves, even though the government printing money is the sole cause of inflation. It's not the war in Russia. It's not the supply chains. It's not the pandemic. They're debasing the currency. That's it. And Bitcoin just takes a mirror and it exposes it. It shows it because it proves that money can exist and function in a much better fashion without the necessity of having to debase it, right? So anyhow, to give a lot of that context. So Nigeria launched a CBDC. It was a total failure. And instead of, looking inward and saying, you know what, guys, we got to be more fiscally responsible, they sued the biggest on-ramp in the country for 81. Nigeria sues Binance for $81.5 billion in economic losses and unpaid taxes. It goes on to say, the Nigerian government has filed a lawsuit against Binance demanding $79.5 billion in compensation for economic losses. The case submitted to the federal high court in Nigeria alleges that the cryptocurrency exchange operated in Nigeria without a license and failed to adhere to tax regulations. So Nigerian authorities blamed Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, for the country's currency challenges, a claim refuted by CEO Richard Tang. And it goes on to say in 2024, Gambarian and the Binance Africa lead were detained amid a crackdown on crypto platforms, notably Binance, which had preferred channels for trading the local Naira. So the key to this passage is Nigerian authorities blamed Binance for the country's currency challenges. That isn't, and the reason I'm bringing this up, the reason that you guys listen, we just went through the separation of information and state. It was super, super messy. They deplatformed individuals. They censored information. They literally deplatformed a sitting precedent. They deplatformed people based on their political ideas, their political thoughts, right? They were labeling everything left and right misinformation. Even in the United States, that has First Amendment protections, the US government was asking social media platforms to censor on its behalf. And it wasn't until Elon acquired X and freed the bird in the process that we are essentially finding all this news out. Now, it's a little bit different. The information landscape completely changed, right? We went over the hump of the disintermediation of information and state. Now, all of a sudden, individuals all around the world could talk freely amongst each other, directly peer-to-peer, like we're doing with you guys right now. And all of a sudden, the information game changes. Because before social media, there was only a handful of media outlets of which people could get their news from. But what we discovered during the pandemic, what we discovered during the last 10 years, is that a lot of those media outlets weren't necessarily media outlets. They really acted like propaganda outlets. And the reason that independent media is succeeding the way it's succeeding is because people were sick and tired of being lied to, and they were seeking the truth. So they would rather listen to some dude that smokes weed, talks about DMT and eating elk than, getting fed lies by a dude on a TV with the tie. And the dude that I was referring to, of course, is Joe Rogan. The most popular broadcasters on the face of the earth right now are not from the legacy media. They're from independent media. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because that was the disintermediation of information and state. What we're heading into right now is the disintermediation of money and state. And what's going to happen, the Nigerian case study is a great example of that. Think about it this way. How did governments react when people started posting information on social media that made them look bad? Did they look did they look within themselves and they say, hey guys, you know what? Like, we should probably stop blaming inflation on the weather? No, they didn't do that. They said, if you say that inflation is not caused by the weather, you're a danger to democracy. That's misinformation, and they just gaslit people. So we're going to go through a very similar type of process. Of course, Bitcoin's going to win at the end because it has better incentives. And the Nigerian case study is a great example of what they can potentially do, which is they're going to go after the on-ramps and the off-ramps. And this is why it's never been as important as it is today to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Now, of course, Nigeria walked this back a little bit. Opti, if you could share the screen, please. Nigeria walked this back a little bit. This is one of the latest articles, dropped a couple days ago, about a week ago or so. And the name of the article is Regulation. We are not out to cripple anybody. There are other companies operating in the crypto sector in Nigeria. You don't see them facing charges, Nigeria says amid Binance trial. The information minister denied that Binance was being held responsible for the devaluation of the naira. Again, that always comes out, which was driven by factors including the government's decision to float the currency in 2023. He maintained that the charges against Binance focus on tax evasion and money laundering, although he said Binance contributed to the currency's devaluation, right? Guys, it just reminds me of, The Sovereign Individual, which I always reference this, and I really recommend reading this book because it predicted a lot of these things that are happening. So these are quotes from the book itself. In the new millennium, cyber money controlled by private markets will supersede fiat money issued by governments. Only the poor will be victims of inflation and ensuring collapses into deflation that are consequences of the artificial leverage with fiat money injects into the economy. Lacking their accustomed scope to tax and inflate, governments even in traditionally civil countries will turn nasty. It goes on to say, as income tax becomes uncollectible, and again, this isn't just income. When they're referring to income tax, inflation is a form of taxation, okay? Older and more arbitrary methods of extraction will resurface. The ultimate form of withholding tax, the de facto or even overt hostage taking. What did they do with the Binance executives? They arrested them. Businesses that offer services that facilitate the realization of autonomy by individuals will be subject to infiltration, sabotage, disruption, arbitrary forfeiture of property, already commonplace in the United States, where it occurs 5,000 times a week, will become even more pervasive. Governments will violate human rights, censor the free flow of information, sound familiar? Sabotage useful technologies, and worse. So the reason we're covering all of this is to arm you guys with the knowledge, with the truth. Again, self-custody, Bitcoin and self-custody is power. This is how you achieve financial sovereignty as an individual. Don't let governments that have been completely irresponsible with the trust that we bestowed to them by being essentially the ones responsible for money, don't let them gaslight you into thinking that somehow the popularity of their CBDCs not taking off, or the adoption of the CBDC not taking off, is somehow your fault, or is somehow the fault of Bitcoin, or is somehow the fault of Binance. No, it's Bitcoin is better money. And governments have never had competition with money. And more specifically, when they had competition, because that competition wasn't decentralized, governments had the ability to shut it down. But because Bitcoin is decentralized, they can't shut it down. And because they can't shut it down, they're forced to have to compete with it. And when they're forced to have to compete with it, they don't like the competition because they can't match the incentives that Bitcoin provides, right? So again, the Nigerian case study, it's extremely interesting, very fascinating, something to keep in mind. Guys, we're winning. This is every indication that we're winning. But again, I still think we have a hump to go over. I think we won the disintermediation of information and state. I think we're on the verge of going over the hump of the disintermediation of money and state. In the United States, it was very favorable that this current administration won the previous election. We have a very favorable regulatory environment in the United States, right? But that isn't the case in all countries. Europe is going full steam ahead down the central bank digital currency route, right? So anyways, Opti, what's your chat on this? I mean, what's your thoughts on this, man? I went on a little bit of a ramble, but I think it's incredibly important to point this out because this is a great case study, what's happening in Nigeria.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest signal there is what did they say, that they blame the devaluation of the, I forget what their fiat currency, the naira. They blamed the devaluation of the naira on Bitcoin. And I've been saying for a long time, and we are seeing these case studies pop up around the world where they start to blame Bitcoin and Bitcoiners for their own problems. I mean, I forget who it was, but it was someone, I think it was either the Fed or the ECB, and they were essentially saying like, blame Bitcoin for inflation, like blame Bitcoin for the fact that we're devaluating our own fiat currencies. And so I've been saying for a long time, even though we are seeing some kind of light at the end of the tunnel in the US, I've been saying, especially when we were kind of being attacked with Operation Choke Point 2.0 last year, that we will most likely see more attacks of this nature where they blame Bitcoin and Bitcoiners for their own problems. Obviously, pure projection. And I'm glad we have, at the very least, a small case study in Nigeria because, a shouts out to our boy Jimbo on the Rumble chat. He's a huge cashless advocate here. And he basically says that we're all headed towards a digital dystopia. They're going to be able to control cashless societies, and they want to eliminate cash so that they can control you. He's a fiat maxi. He stores his value in fiat. Well, look, we have a case study here. We know that they're trying to usher us into a cashless society. I mean, all cash is essentially digital anyways, but there is a fork in the road. There's a CBDC world and a Bitcoin world. One world where the digital money is controlled, can be turned off, can have expiration dates, and one that is permissionless, censorship resistant, that they can't control, that goes up forever. It's very simple. As someone that is basically a digitally native person, I've grown up on the internet. I see where the world's going. We're seeing that the SWIFT system, the traditional fiat system, is antiquated here. It is old. It's barely functioning. It's on its last leg, and there's really no choice. You either have to choose Bitcoin or you choose a CBDC. And we're seeing that, hey, when the government tried to force a CBDC on Nigerians, they were like, yeah, I don't trust you. I don't want this money. I'm going to do whatever I can to ignore this money. And of course, you're seeing the reaction from the government, and they essentially blame CZ. And, I wish one of our boys was in here all the time, because he would usually say CZ did nothing wrong. I wouldn't go that far, but I'm just saying that that these attacks are coming. They're going to blame Bitcoin and Bitcoiners for their own problems. And so I've been basically saying this for over a year now, that we have to be aware that this is probably coming down the pipeline. As Bitcoin goes up in price, a lot of people are going to come after Bitcoiners because you were smart. You took the time to understand Bitcoin. You hodled through all of the peaks and dips. It wasn't easy. And then they're going to be mad that you have some wealth and they are basically being cut out of the financial system. So I don't think this is going to stop. I think this is only going to continue. It will get a little bumpy, but as a Bitcoiner, you do have truth on your side. And, just don't get mad at people for them not understanding what is actually going on. We just be aware that these attacks are coming. I think we're going to see way more of this stuff, Nico.
100%. I mean, again, this is why we're covering this. It's kind of like a foreshadowing to what could potentially happen to countries that are really hell bent on rolling out these CBDs. Specifically, that seems to be the case in Europe. So I think the Nigeria example is a fascinating case study. Now, also, what I'll say as well is it's never been as important as it is today to learn how to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, because again, even if your country, the place where you're from or where you live, goes down that kind of totalitarian route, Bitcoin gives you the power to vote with your feet, but of course, only if you have that Bitcoin in self-custody, right? So it's never been as important as it is today to really take the time to learn how to do that. Anyways, guys, we're going to move on to the next segment. We're going to hit the culture. We're going to talk all things BitBlockBoom. It's coming up this Saturday. Hope to see you guys there. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. Nico, Opti, Dante, Rustin, Jacob. It's going to be a great time. We have Simply Bitcoin merch with us as well. We're going to be running the news desk. We're going to be doing the live stream. It's going to be a great time. Hope to see you guys there. We're going to be right back. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint in 2025. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to make moves in sustainable, high-performance computing. They consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, and now they're headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. You can catch the latest buzz by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C See, it's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store. All right, everybody, here is Opti, and if you use promo code SIMPLY, you won't get 5% off Opti, but you will get 5% off the Cold Card Q.
I'm full price.
It is the best. It is the best. Opti's not for sale. It is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market right now, completely open source. It has a transparent background, so you can see if anyone's like kind of messing with your hardware wallet. It's my daily driver. We use it here at Simply Bitcoin to secure our Bitcoins. Check out the MK4 or the Cold Card Q. They're absolutely awesome. Highly recommend. Scan the QR code on your screen right now. Get 5% off anything on the Cold Card store. Get yourself a Bitcoin hardware wallet. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Take it seriously. Don't leave your Bitcoin on the exchanges. That's not your Bitcoin. Anyways, I'm going to open up the conversation. I'm going to pull this up. Give a shout out to BitBlockBoom. Opti and I will be there. It's coming up, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th, and April 6th. The events start tomorrow. The conference is on Saturday, so I believe that's April 5th. You definitely don't want to miss it. If you use promo code BBB21, you can still get your tickets, and you will get a discount. So I'm going to go kind of go down the agenda of the things that are happening. So the first day, there's a bunch of satellite events. There's the Bitcoin Mom. There's the Frisco Bitcoin Barbecue Lunch. And this is the first event. It's going to be at the Truck Yard in the Colony. It's going to be starting at 6:30 to 10:30. It's the official Welcome to BitBlockBoom Thursday dinner party. Again, if you're trying to get a job in the industry, this is one of the best events to go to, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, BitBlockBoom was the first event where me and Opti actually met each other in person for the first time. You can make an argument that if it wasn't for BitBlockBoom, Simply Bitcoin would not exist today. Anyways, so let's move on to Friday. This is happening April 4th here in Dallas, Texas. Of course, again, promo code BBB21 to get $100 off your tickets. There's a satellite event called the Bitcoin Editors Writers Breakfast. There's the Bitcoin Art Auctions, and then the BitBlockBoom workshops. And the workshops are going to be at the Hilton Granite Park, Dallas, Plano. The first one is going to be Lightning. The second one is Bitcoin for Beginners. Then there's a mining one. There's a Lightning one. There's a Bitcoin for Beginners. There's mining. The mining one is going to be hosted by Pierre Richard. That one starts at 11 a.m. Then there's Lightning. There's Bitcoin for Beginners by our boy Sean Harris. There's mining by Hodl Tarantula. Mining by Bitcoin Mechanic from Ocean. There's Kaz. There's, of course, Matt Hill. Matt Hill is the CEO and founder of Start9. Absolutely love those nodes. You have Rockstar, who's making a presentation on Lightning. You have Katie the Russian. Katie the Russian is the founder of Plan B Passport. So she's going to be holding a presentation from 4 to 5. Then you have mining by Kent. That's going to be happening from 4 to 5 p.m. So, guys, you definitely don't want to miss this. And then there is the BitBlock Shoot, which starts between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. So tomorrow there's going to be some great events, or Friday, better said, happening. And, of course, on Saturday is conference day. Me and Opti are going to be holding down the news desk, and we're going to be streaming it all day for you guys on YouTube, on the Simply Bitcoin channel. Of course, we're going to be hosting interviews in between panels. It's going to be a great time. Registration starts at 8 a.m. and the conference starts at 9 a.m. Central Time. The first panel is going to be hosted by Dante, and the name of the keynote is "How to Orange Pill Anyone." Then we have Dom Bay, we have Luke Broyles, then Mike Hobart, Parker Lewis, Dennis Porter, James Lavish, Colin Crossman, Stefan Livera, Larry Lepard, Bitstein. I'm looking forward to that one. We got Lynn Bairstow. We got Mel. We got Bob Burnett. We got Rustin. We got Guy Swan. We got Lee Bratcher. We got Buck Purley. Oh, I'm on there. Nico, Marty Bent, and of course the closing remarks by Gary Leland. And there's BitBlock Chess. There's the Woman of BitBlockBoom happy hour. There's the famous casino night, and there's going to be dinners that are happening throughout this whole event. It's going to be a great time, guys. This is one of my favorite Bitcoin conferences of the year. It might not be the biggest one, but I like it because you're able to approach some of your favorite Bitcoiners and they don't feel like, so like reserved and like defensive because they get swarmed at these massive Bitcoin conferences. BitBlockBoom is like just the right size so you can approach your favorite Bitcoiners and you just spark up a conversation with them. There is no backstage at BitBlockBoom. So as soon as a speaker's finishes, they just go to the front, right? So you can just spark up a conversation with them. What's really normal too is a lot of these Bitcoiners, they just sit in the crowd. Like they just sit on one of the desks and they just watch the presentation. So it's really, really awesome, guys. It's one of my favorite Bitcoin conferences of the year. Hope to see you guys there. BBB 21. Opti's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Russ is going to be there. Dante's going to be there. Hope to see you guys there. Again, starts on Saturday. The events start tomorrow. Opti and I are going to be doing shows tomorrow and Friday as well. So you guys aren't going to miss a Simply Bitcoin live episode. But until then, love you guys all. If you guys enjoyed today's show, smash that like button. Consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. Love you all. We appreciate it. We couldn't be here without you guys. We hit 1.7 million views on YouTube in the month of March. That's an all-time high despite the recent price. And we wouldn't be able to do that without you guys. So we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. If you guys want to support Simply Bitcoin, check out our partners. That's who keeps the lights on. That's what makes us, that's how we're able to do what we do. So check out our partners. We're very picky on who we choose to partner with. They're awesome Bitcoin companies. Get yourself a cold card. Use promo code Simply for 5% off. Anyways, love you guys. We'll see you on the next episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.